Today's video is all about fragrant roses. I'm going to go over all the fragrant roses I have, talk about some of my favorite varieties, and answer a question we had in the comments. And that question was, could I recommend a white or a pink fragrant rose that grows as well as Mr. Lincoln? And the answer is no in terms of growth, but the answer is secret in terms of a decent growing rose and the colors you were looking for. So this is what I mean. This is secret. This is only the second year I've had it. Beautiful form, decent growth. I wouldn't say as much as Mr. Lincoln, because Mr. Lincoln, I mean, it's just one of the best growing roses I have. But you can see really nice foliage, green foliage on the bush itself, and then outstanding form, especially once I got rid of my thrip issue. I mean, this could compete in rose shows. The fragrance is light. It's not as strong as Mr. Lincoln, but the reason why that would be my recommendation is it's an fairly easily attainable rose from mail order. It has good fragrance and decent growth. So that would be my recommendation. It is called Secret. It's a hybrid tea. Comparing it to Mr. Lincoln, there's not a huge comparison because, again, Mr. Lincoln in terms of growth blows it away. This is Secret in the foreground. That is Mr. Lincoln in the background. With to be even, the Secret is only in its second year in the garden, so it is going to be a little bigger than that what I have right now. But Mr. Lincoln is just one of my best growing roses of all time. Mr. Lincoln, I don't have any buds on it right now, but it's my favorite fragrant rose because of the good growth of the bush, the amount of blooms you get, and the fragrance is unmatched. It's just outstanding. The only detriment to it is the bloom does open a little quick. And so it doesn't last as long in the vase as something like Secret. But I just want to give you that comparison between Secret and Mr. Lincoln. Secret would be my recommendation for a pink-white blend in terms of fragrance. One other one you could consider that is also fairly easy to get in the garden, that is a white and pink blend, is Crescendo. You can see the real glossy leaves. The parent is Gemini. You can see the coloring that Gemini, as the offspring of Crescendo is the offspring of Gemini. You can see the coloring in it. Really nice center, pinpoint to that. I mean, beautiful bloom. So Secret and Crescendo are two that you can't go wrong with if you're thinking about some fragrance and, that light pink bloom. It would be second on my list of Secret, and the two reasons for that. I'll show you a more mature bush. That is one that was planted last year as well. So let me show you what it looks like in comparison to something apples to apples. So it's a decently growing bush as I come over here. This is what a more mature Crescendo looks like. Again, the glossy leaves. Its fragrance is a little lighter than Secret, so I would probably give the Secret an advantage on that in terms of fragrance strength. But it's funny, everybody's nose is different. What is really fragrant to you might not be as much to me. So my two recommendations, again, Crescendo, it's a hybrid tea, and then a Secret. Those would be the two that I would definitely recommend for the comment we got on a fragrant light pink or white rose. You can see it's got good growth habit on it. One downside to Crescendo, and that's why I would rank it 2 to number 1, which would be Secret, is it does get some black spot. The sprinkler hits it here in my garden, and despite spraying, it still gets a little black spot. But if you're not too concerned with that, or you're willing to spray, Crescendo is an option. So we answered the question of a light pink or white fragrant rose. We recommended Secret, and then second we would recommend Crescendo, neither of which might grow quite as vigorous as Mr. Lincoln, but still not too bad. What are some other recommendations for fragrant roses? Mr. Lincoln is one, Double Delight is another. Beautiful coloring, and I've shown this in past videos, but it's a red, white blend. But as I pull these petals back, you can see the yellow in the core, just a real beauty. It turns into a nice open bloom, and it has a nice spicy fragrance. But can you beat that color? I mean, it's not even showing up in the phone as well as it is to the naked eye. So Double Delight is one I have that I would recommend as well. If you're looking for something that's orangish red and is a big bloom, This is much, much bigger. I think you can notice, I mean, this Double Delight is not fully open, but look at the size comparison. This is Dolly Parton, beautiful orangish red bloom. It is fragrant as well. It might be a little bit harder to find, but that is one that I like. A decently growing rose bush as well, as you can see. A slightly newer one that should be really easy to find commercially is Pope John Paul II. I found that it's a more stout and wide bush versus tall, and I can't get over how many blooms are on this thing. Everything's equal in this garden. The pH is about the same, so it's just different growth habit. Dolly Parton, a little taller, longer stems, less blooms. Shorter stems, but just a crazy amount of blooms on here. The fragrance on this is a little lighter, and again, everybody's nose is different. Everybody likes Mr. Lincoln in terms of strong scent. Same with Double Delight. When you get into the Pope John Paul II's, it's more citrusy and light, fragrance to it, so it might not be as overpowering as a Mr. Lincoln, but really, really nice form on it, and just an abundance of blooms in the garden. If you can keep it clean of thrip damage, I think it has rose show potential as well because of that form. I mean, if you can keep the bloom clean, maybe some of those qualities as well. So that is it in the garden in terms of fragrance. Oh, one more I forgot that I had, actually two more. This would be Fragrant Cloud. It's a little lower on my list. It's on my list because it's a beautiful orange rose. I'll try to link to it below because it's past peak. I don't have any blooms to show you. But it's lower on my list because it's not quite as vigorous as my other roses, and it doesn't put out as many blooms. There's Pope John Paul II in the background, and despite not seeing blooms on this, you can gather that here's a few ones, a few buds coming and a few that are past. It just doesn't have the amount that Pope John Paul II has. The other negating factor on this one is it opens really quick. And what I mean by that is this is not a fragrant rose. This is folklore, but a rose like that has a lot of petals, like a folklore, will go and hold this form many, many days in the garden or in your vase that you cut your flowers and put them in, and it'll stay like this for many, many days. So perhaps more than a week, you will have a beautiful cut flower. A rose that opens quick, like a Fragrant Cloud, looks beautiful for a day or two, and then it just poof, all the petals fall out. So that's why it's lower on my list, but you can't beat that orange, and the fragrance is very strong. But when you're ranking them, I would definitely say Mr. Lincoln and Double Delight are up near the top. Secret, Pope John Paul II, very, very good selections as well. I mentioned Crescendo. And then if you've got a lot of room in the garden, consider something like Fragrant Cloud as well. So that's it for today. I keep saying that. I did remember one more. If you're into old garden roses, this is a nice one for fragrance. This is harder to find. This is Yolande de Aragon. So it doesn't have hybrid tea form. It has this more poofy nature to the bloom, but it is outstanding. As I take a whiff of that, it's as if somebody sprayed perfume right in my face. I mean, you cannot beat. I mean, this is more overpowering than Mr. Lincoln. And comment below. I might be able to help you find some resources to find this one. Its main advantage is strong fragrance. The main down, and it's a good growing rose. I didn't prune this year as kind of a little science experiment to see how big this thing could get. This and Alina, I'm just kind of curious. But the downside of this is it primarily blooms in the spring and then just a light round of roses in the fall. As opposed to Pope John Paul II, Mr. Lincoln, any of these hybrid teas will give you multiple blooms throughout the year. So in New York, it was June and August. Down south, it could be up to 5 different cycles of blooms throughout the year. So that is it, I promise, on the fragrant roses. Comment below, what are your favorites? Certainly Mr. Lincoln and Double Delight for me, but I'm growing to like Pope John Paul II and Secret, as well as Crescendo. So comment below, and I hope that answered your question for the person that asked for a white or pink blend fragrant rose. Take care now.